Mate, today's video is one of those special ones where not only do I present a problem, but I actually have answers for it. I have a solution. I have answers. Ha! Found the old plush, squishy, jaggy Fist of the North Star jaggy mask, so, you know, what do you think of that? Pretty swanky, I think you'll agree. Planning to don this, go out to Leeds tonight and, you know, try and score. You know, sometimes you put the prop on, set the camera rolling and just assume the comedy will write itself. Done this a long time and it has never worked out that way. Oh well. Today's video is about how much I suck at Clair Obscur Expedition 33. To give you an idea, I am so bad at it, I can't even say its name right, and I call it Clair Obscur the Expedition the whole way through. So, yeah, sorry about that. I didn't know much about how Clair Obscur the Expedition played before I knew I wanted it. Hell, I didn't even know what genre Clair Obscur the Expedition was before I knew I wanted it. It was that premise. That premise absolutely gripped me by the throat, and I figured that however it played, I'd make it work, because I wanted Clair Obscur the Expedition. Like, just look at this Fantasy France Logan's Run by way of Labyrinth nonsense.
You're fighting to change things.
For those who come after. Right?
I thought I was used to losing people.
Yeah, me too.
Welp! Now I have Clair Obscur the Expedition, and a finger on my monkey's paw just finished slowly, cruelly curling. Hate that fucking paw. Stupid sorcerers and their no-returns policies. Look, the Expedition is great. I think. The Expedition is stylish, the Expedition is captivating, the Expedition is sublimely presented, gorgeously realised, fascinatingly written, impressively performed, scored and constructed. There's just one problem with it. I can't play the fucking thing. Game hard! From the year 2006 to this very day, I can think of only one video game where I felt like I had to lower the difficulty on it while reviewing it. That game was Quantum Theory, and no, I don't expect that name to mean much to anybody either watching or not watching this video. I'd be surprised if Quantum Theory meant anything to the people who made Quantum Theory. It certainly didn't play like the developers were particularly into the job, but yeah, the instantly forgotten Tecmo Koei Gears of War wannabe had this terribly designed part that felt next to impossible without busting down the difficulty to tank the unavoidable hail of enemy fire. I strive to play every game I'm planning to critique on normal mode, the default difficulty, the setting most players will use and for which the game was presumably predominantly designed. Clair Obscur, however, is a special little case, especially because it's actually good, unlike Quantum friggin' Theory. It may not supplant Quantum Theory in my history as a reviewer, however, due to the fact I may not play enough of Clair Obscur to even make it to the review stage. I simply may not be able to. Skill issue, etc. Autocorrect has changed obscure to obscure the whole way through. I wish I could explain the problem any deeper than I just can't dodge or parry for shit, not least for the fact I've never had problems at least dodging in any other game before this. I'm including Souls games, I'm including Platinum's library, hell, Lies of P even got me learning to parry in ways no other game has managed, unlocking an ability in games that I otherwise never bothered trying with because I suck at parrying. Suffice to say, among every single one of what must be the hundreds of games I've reviewed in my time, I've either been quite good, quite average, or at the very least serviceable when it comes to mitigating and reducing enemy damage. This thing though, This bloody thing! The hardest time I've ever had with the concept of damage mitigation in a game where it's more important than most. Despite having the skeleton of a turn-based RPG, the Expedition rivals the most brutal of action games with its requirements for precision and responsiveness. By pressing the right button at the right time during an enemy's attack, you can dodge or parry it, something that's possible with almost every single bit of incoming offense. Dodging and parrying use the same timing, with the latter simply having a tighter window in exchange for being able to counter-attack on succeeding. The premise is simple. If it attacks, you can deal with it. Theoretically. To a player who gets it, you can take no damage in every encounter you have, which ain't exactly usual for the genre. The Expedition is not the first RPG to throw in timed defensive moves, but it gets the most mileage from them, and it is by far the most strict about them. On normal difficulty, despite what the settings menu claims, nailing these timed buttons is mandatory for progression. Combat is built entirely around the need to mitigate incoming damage reliably. A single hit can take at least half, often more, of a character's health, and healing is neither generous nor really optimal in a battle system where dealing as much damage as quickly as possible is distinctly important. A few hours in, you start encountering enemies that can perform multi-hit party-wide attacks. Being able to reliably negate that shit is not an optional ability as far as I'm concerned. Thing is, there are no reliable tells, certainly not consistently. Clair Obscur does away with uniform audio or visual cues for incoming attacks. All you have to go on is how the enemy itself is moving as it attacks. Its animations are the only tell, and even those can be hard to trust. I've seen it compared to classic phone game Infinity Blade, a game I used to love by the way, but I'd argue while much of that game's evasion was based purely on visual movement, combat was consistent in a way this game isn't. Well, not quite. Every single enemy has its own unique timing for its attacks, and every one of an enemy's attacks have their own unique timing. Some can actually be anticipated using audio cues, others absolutely cannot be. Some give a little visual flash right before you should act, others give away nothing. Some combos attack with an almost rhythm game beat, others have deliberately erratic timings that throw you off. Some beat out a rhythm before striking, others simply strike without warning. There are action game style attacks you can dodge simply by watching a weapon come towards you. Some slowly wind up, then rapidly strike, or vice versa, or add a little delay before hitting to screw with an action player's muscle memory. Some attacks give such little pre-warning you almost have to be hit by them a few times just to learn to evade by pure feeling. There are even attacks that throw out visual feints to draw your eyes away from the thing that's actually coming towards you, or one of your characters anyway, which can also be hard to figure out if the camera's showing your entire party from a distance. About the only attacks I can reliably deal with are special ones that require you to jump instead of dodge or parry because they flash up a warning symbol. Weirdly, even though said symbol isn't entirely related to the timing of the attack, simply having any consistent visual indicator does a lot for the psychology of the game that helps me out tremendously. There's probably a whole topic in that for someone who's clever. Basically though, enemy offense contains a lot to keep track of. In a game that already has uniquely complex systems individually tied to each party member, everyone coming with their own differently timed QTE-based skills. At least those get on-screen indicators. You're on your own when it comes to defense though, with all the variations of timings and telegraphs it requires. None of this is bad. I'm not saying that. It's exclusive, though, in a not entirely positive sense of the word. I should point out that my experience is far from universal. Indeed, there are those who have experienced the opposite situation, telling me they're terrible at dodging in other games, but absolutely clicking with both dodging and parrying in this one. I think it's safe to say that Clair Obscur is doing something that sets it apart from other games, something that I personally find prohibitive, even as I recognise that it is a damn good game. A painfully good game. It hurts that I like it. Amusingly, the accessibility options have a setting for those aforementioned skill QTEs, but not the part that's making the Expedition truly inaccessible for myself and others. The only way you make that part easier is to make the entire game easier. I'm genuinely surprised that the non-QTE features are tied to a broadly stroked 3-tier difficulty mode, where unrelated elements like damage values are intrinsically linked to the dodge and parry mechanics. You cannot separately toggle the damage you take and your windows for evasion, which, in an age of accessibility-based flexibility, seems notably strange to me. I don't mind the enemies dealing high damage, that's not where my need for assistance comes in, but I can't get that specialised assistance. One of the absolute best things Silent Hill gave the world was the 2-tone difficulty setting, combat level and riddle level. Man, fuck riddles. Fuck riddles, fuck Matt Riddle, and fuck the Riddlers. No, not the Riddler from Batman, the Riddlers. Those old children's ITV puppets from the 80s, creepy fucks. Or they were from the 90s, I don't know. The decades blend into each other as one amorphous chronoglobule of pain these days.
She had a good idea, did my mum. She gave us all nicknames, you see. She calls my sister Fiddler because she can play the violin. And she calls my baby brother Littler because he's littler than all the rest of us.
And what does she call you?
Anyway, separate toggles for combat and puzzles. Team Silent was ahead of its time there. They realised immediately that different people come to the same games for different reasons and proactively responded to that. I realise I'm asking for a fully customisable Burger King have it your way experience here, and not every game has the resources to accommodate fine strokes difficulty options. I also respect that the Expedition's creators clearly see its damage negation system as so intrinsically woven into the fabric of the experience that to change it is to change everything, even if I disagree. Nevertheless, being able to better customise your difficulty is becoming the done thing these days, and Clair Obscur is easily one of the biggest cases for it I've seen. That said, and here's where I accept the buck. Even on easy, I still fucking suck at it. Like, I really fucking suck at it. I know I'm gonna be paraded shamefaced through the streets of London as a fake gamer girl while the gamers TM declare I'm actually a fake gamer fake girl while Keir Starmer nods approvingly from behind his copy of Suella Braverman Monthly, but gamer! What the hell was any of that sentence? This is not the first time I've sat outside of a video game, my hand pressed longingly against its window while watching all the fun going on inside. Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice is a game I desperately wish I could play, but the fact is that despite being a lover of the Souls games since Demon Souls and jumping right back on the love train with Elden Ring, Sekiro remains an unstamped box on the loyalty card of FromSoft's library. Like I said earlier, it wasn't until Lies of P that I ever got to grips with the basics of parrying in a game, and even then it's not something I'm very good with at all, and I much prefer blocking or dodging whenever I can. Sekiro is a game I will simply never be able to play due to how its need for precise timing, deflection and capacity for high-stress combat scenarios is so integral to the experience, and I want to say, but that's okay, but like, not for me it isn't. It sucks for me. I want to fight a headless monkey. It used to suck looking at fighting games too, games I always wanted to play but due to my neurodivergence could never get the hang of when it came to pulling off moves with all their button combos and whatnot. That was the case until of course Street Fighter 6 and the modern control options that took the stress out of combos and let me focus on the parts of combat that I felt really mattered. Plus it made a bunch of gamer bros salty when it turned out they actually sucked at the game. I did a whole video on that back when it came out, and even now the mere thought of Street Fighter 6 doing what it did, opening its doors to myself and so many other people, makes me just gosh darn happy. Speaking of which, I saw that new Fatal Fury is advertising a similar control method. Is that, like, any good? Because I could do with a new fighter that I can actually play. Street Fighter 6 gave me a taste, Grand Prix Fantasy Versus gave me more, and what that Fatal Fury do? Seriously. There isn't a demo and games are expensive these days. Which brings me to the overarching point of today's presentation. Mate, games cost a lot. I say this as someone privileged enough to claim them as an expense when I say, damn, they're one hell of an expense.
Damn the expense!
Not all games are for everyone. That's a popular argument among the gatekeeping get-gooders who have taken up the ridiculous cause of opposing accessibility in games. What they really mean is, back off, this game is just for me. But let's take it at face value. Some games aren't for everyone and they're allowed to have a cultivated audience, and I don't necessarily disagree. No, not all games are for everyone, but, here's the teeny problem with that. Games are sold to everyone. I was watching a K-Bash video on the Soulsborne series. YouTube recommended his Radiator Stories video to me, and anyway, now I'm playing Radiator Stories, and they brought up the term player filtering. The idea of games having certain checkpoints that cause a notable portion of the audience to stop playing. You know, certain bosses or levels that do exactly as the term suggests. They filter players down to the ones with the skills or the patience or the time to press on, which funny enough is thematically resonant with the expedition. It's not something tracked as an exact science, mostly going off the percentage of certain achievements unlocked, but it's a concept that makes sense. A lot of players bounced off Sekiro at or before the first boss, and of course they did. Sekiro is so exacting in its expectations of the player, so full of merciless skill checks, and so lacking in the options available in other Souls-related games that, while it sold many copies, a fraction of those players ever got near the end. And hey, that's how Sekiro is, that's how it was designed, and I have always recognised Sekiro is a good game, even if it does filter people out. But those filtered people, they all bought it. And games are expensive, increasingly expensive, in a world where everything is getting more expensive, and people are being coerced into working more hours than ever, robbing them of the time they need to, as Get Gooders say, get good. Sekiro isn't for everyone. It was sold to everyone. And that is a game's right, but I would love to see more games reckon with it. Video games make for a funny medium, don't they? It's seen as the sign of a very bad movie if people get up and walk out halfway through it. I only ever walked out of one film, Terminator Salvation, partly because some really obnoxious teenagers were in the theatre, but mostly because it was fucking shit. When it comes to games, walking out halfway through isn't just an accepted truth, it's taken by some as the sign of a good game. It's wild when you think about it, but a game filtering out people who paid 30, 50, 70 bucks for it is also really kinda mean. Not all games are for all people, but they're sold to all people regardless. I want demos to come back, that's what I want. Not just occasional treat demos or alleged open betas like we get now. As soon as I saw Fatal Fury had modern controls, I looked for a demo. I bid off on Street Fighter 6 only after Laura Kate Dale, having already tested its accessibility options, had let me know all the details I needed to know for a reasonable assurance that I wasn't spunking money up against a tree. I need that with a fighting game, and I think that's a reasonable need. I should know that I can actually play it before I buy it, right? That's fair. Demos are always looked at as a sales thing. In fact, they fell out of favour when stats were coming out saying that they're not that effective at selling a game, but sod that, they're an accessibility feature as far as I'm concerned. You see, I want something more specific with demos. I want demos of a game's projected filter moment, either the first filter or the biggest one. Take one of the hardest, one of the most prohibitive sections of a game and make a demo of it so people can see if they can actually play your game before they buy it. And you tell them in that demo, this is what our game is like, we're not compromising on that and you will hate it if you hated this. There's a filter. The filter demo should be a thing. Hot dang! A Jimquisition with a solution! Or, you know, if a demo is beyond you for whatever reason, carry a warning. Warning, this game is basically Sekiro with an attitude problem and fuck off if you don't like it. I'd respect that. In fact, some games carry such a litmus test, albeit unwittingly. If a game's store page description bangs on about how hard it is, focuses on difficulty as a primary selling point, I bounce. I just know I won't get on with a game preoccupied with difficulty as if hard is an inherently high quality trait. Well, I mean, it depends on whose business you're trying to get. There are some who will have the opposite response and totally buy into that selling point. For me, crowing about difficulty is a filter point, and I'm thankful it comes before I bloody buy the thing. If a game has a barrier to entry, there should be a barrier to purchase. At the very least, Steam's 2-hour window for refunds helps with this, provided the filter point isn't lurking past that window. But ideally, you want that filter to come before the money's changed hands. I wanted Clair Obscur. It was everything I wanted in a game. Except playable, for fuck's sake. Fucking monkey's paw. I've given some reasons as to why Clair Obscur might be overwhelming, but I can't fully tell you why I'm struggling so badly with it where I haven't with other games. It's tangible, it's something I feel, something I'm not sure a game review or any other research I could have done would communicate. But a lot of the buck does stop with me, and it dribbles down my face like so much cup egg. Like so much egg is what's on my face.
Well, good save, but Considering egg prices, the fish thing would have been cheaper.
I'm not gonna say the majority of this isn't on me. I knew I wanted Clair Obscur before I even knew what genre it was. That's ridiculous. I pride myself on very rarely buying into the hype, and here I am, swallowing buckets of hype like the little hype glutton I am, feeling it slide down my hype gullet like so much cum, semen, spunk, cum, hype is what's in my throat. I'll tell you one thing for having no stakes left in YouTube success. I get to say cum a lot. The Gymquisition. Semen approved. Big load hungry. None of this is in the script, I'm just chatting utter shit. Oh, and I can say shit.
I wish I knew that's where this bit was going before I bought all these eggs.
What a weird medium we have. A game I was so sure I loved, and love almost everything about, is inaccessible to me for the want of pressing a single button better. I love that game. I can't play it. That is a unique frustration and a bitter disappointment. But hey, whatever. The game wasn't made for me. I did fucking buy it though, didn't I? Mea culpa. No, wait, Cavity Emperor. That's the one. Still waiting for the comedy to get writing. I think it's on strike, and you know, I'm bound by the tenets of the show, so I have to respect that. Thank God for me. Hopefully by next week something funny will arise because of this wacky prop. Or, you know, I'll just forget about it again for another 5 or 8 years. Yeah, that'll do. I might see if I can get laid up with